Sound, music, sustainability. Welcome to Sustain FM. So what is trash really? And what is waste? And how do we cut down how much we throw away? And what happens when we throw things away? Is that really the end of things? There's already many groups like Bye Bye Plastic and Clubtopia that are thinking about questions like these: how to reduce waste in clubs and festivals, how to get rid of plastic water bottles, and so on. But a different approach is to completely rethink the idea of waste and trash. And today I'm talking with Veerle Pennock and Etta Harbar from Utrecht in the Netherlands. They're live performers, teachers, makers, and hackers, exploring the crossover between e-waste, art, music, and instruments. And I'm very happy to talk with them more about their work and approach to sustainability. So welcome, Veerle and Etta.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello, hello. Thanks for being with us. I'm really excited about this conversation.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, it's great. I've known Veerle for a while, and yeah, I think I met you first when you were performing on stage, when you had your tiara made out of recycled and repurposed PCB boards and that kind of thing, which was, I got to say, one of the coolest things I've ever seen. So, so I'm excited about that, which actually kind of leads into my first question. So you're both artists, and you're also both hackers and makers. And I'm curious for both of you, like, which of those came first? Was it really the being into the music first and then getting to electronics and the making things? Or was it more about the tech stuff first and then the music came? So I'm really curious how that came about.
Should I go first? I think for me, what mostly was coming first was the electronics and the tech. So going to a secondhand or going through the workspace and looking at a radio or looking at a toy and thinking, oh, what if I could circuit bend this, or what if I could trigger this with my modular, stuff like that. So a lot of times it is first the hardware that inspires me to make it into an instrument. Mm-hmm. But then to take that instrument on stage, you notice like, oh, now it sort of feels and looks more like a strange guitar thing. So then you continue the research in making it more like an interactive instrument for live stage.
Okay, so you were exploring the technology, but if I understand what you're saying, kind of in the back of your mind, you were exploring that in the sense of, how could I use this for sound, or how could I integrate it with what I'm doing?
Yeah, and sometimes things already sound really nice on their own. So sometimes you have an object or you have a toy and it already makes a really interesting sound, especially with toys that they have the built-in speaker. And as soon as you remove that and you connect an audio jack, the quality of the sound is so much better. But it's still trashy.
Right.
It's still a trashy toy.
Literally trashy, yeah.
And it's also a lot of times that I got tired of looking for samples. I didn't like going online, having to buy sample packs and going through samples and trying to fit what works with the vibe at the moment. So then if you reuse it from electronics that exists, you always have something different and it behaves differently because it's not made to go in sync sometimes, or it's a little bit of randomness to add into like the setup. But I start with electronics, and I always call myself more like a builder that accidentally got onto a stage.
Okay, awesome. And how about you, Etta? Were you on stage first and accidentally a builder, or the other way around?
Definitely, you'd say like similar. Actually, what you said about randomness is like reminds me. So I learned like coding during lockdown, just on my own because I wanted to do something, and I was a bit bored, and I have always been a huge nerd, and I was like, fuck it, I'm gonna learn coding. And then I created some codes with just exploring the idea of randomness and exploring the idea of noise. And I've always been really interested in making weird art, and I've always liked to make things. And so I started making these strange codes. And then I saw at the Field, which is a local squad, Olyatronics. She is a amazing musician who like hacks Game Boys and other circuit band things. And I saw her performing like just on Game Boys that she had hacked, and I was like, I had no fucking idea you could do this. Oh my God. And she just blew my mind, and I was like, I want to do that as well. So then over time it just kind of grew, and I had the idea that I want to just make the worst sounds possible from the cheapest and the strangest materials. So yeah, that's kind of.
And then it can be also.
Yeah, it can be
not
ugly.
with pretty music, but make it.
Yeah, make it aggressive and weird and ugly and harsh and crunchy and all those things that you don't really want to hear, but also you really do.
Right. I mean, that's amazing. I mean, and that's maybe skipping ahead a little bit, because one of the things I had written down I wanted to ask you about is in your Instagram profile, it says noise and trash artists. And I think I get the noise part. I've been to noise festivals. Noise music has a long history and in a whole bunch of different dimensions in different countries. But I'm curious, is that what you mean by being a trash artist? Do you mean the sound trashy or the gear trashy or both?
Well, I think it's a little bit poking fun at the idea that because I make music and I make art as well, so installation art, and it's poking fun at the idea that you have to get the newest and the most expensive gear and equipment and the biggest modular thing that you can think of that costs thousands to be able to make music. So when I say I'm a trash artist and a noise and trash musician, I am a little bit making fun of the also in the art world. There's this idea of also having new paint and all of these things around and so much waste that's created. So I'm inspired to create things from that waste and to sort of say, yeah, trash art and things that you make out of things that are thrown away is still a very valid and very accessible way for everyone to become and to make and create you don't need to be wealthy or to start from, having a lot of stuff. You can do things make weird noises out of things that you find.
Yeah. Yeah, I think also trash is like one person's trash is the other person's gold.
Yeah.
As long as you know what to do with it.
Right. Right. So I mean, let me pick up on that, because I think that's really important what you just said at the end there, is as long as you know what to do with it. So one of the things I wanted to ask you about, Veerle, is you started up Acid Solder Club at Utrecht and giving a lot of education on how to know what to do with it, with soldering and DIY. And so I'm really curious about that, because obviously a lot of people do soldering, a lot of people like DIY, but not everyone actually starts a studio and gives workshops and training to other people on that. So I'm curious, what was behind sort of actually not just doing it yourself, but actually helping other people do it?
I think the biggest drive for me was, especially after graduation, you sort of fall out of the access, especially in either art schools or other schools. You don't have access to a lot of workspaces that much. Okay. And actually you're going also through a rougher period than maybe before, but I really noticed there's now no place anymore where I can meet fellow other artists who make these things or musicians. So first of all, it was kind of lonely. I had a studio, but it was all by myself. And there's a big online community for electronics and soldering and modular and circuit bending also. But to meet people face to face is not in a lot of places. But I also found a lot with, you have Fab Labs and maker spaces also around Utrecht and Netherlands here. But they tend to be kind of clinical. They don't really have that edge, or when you come in, it really is you reserve a laser cutter and somebody will help you with that laser cutter. But then as soon as you finish it, you're out. So it was for me can there be this place where it's not just about learning together and soldering and providing the right equipment to do so, but also feeding that sort of collective interests or fascinations. And and I couldn't find it. So then I was okay, then I start my own and see how it goes. And the first editions were still very lonely. It was one person or two people. And then Corona also happened. So it was very strange to have something set up. And then suddenly there was no way that people could come together anymore. But I do feel that 2 years of stuff there was just not so much for a lot of people to do. So a lot of people dove into synths, into pedals and into DIY. And as soon as it could sort of start up again, I just noticed a lot of people coming to me saying I just really want to build something and I want to meet people who also build things. And it's super addictive. It really feeds off each other, even if you're maybe a pedal maker that comes from more like the guitar pedal scene and a synthesizer player, and they are in the same room building their electronics, you can see the parallels like in interest, but also in how a lot of times these circuits are very similar. So I think it's just nice to create a place where people come with their own stuff, but they also learn new things along the way just because they talk to people who are in the same mindset.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. So actually, maybe even to kind of go back a couple of steps, and maybe I could ask both of you, because we've actually used a bunch of different terms that not everyone listening might be familiar with. We've talked about circuit bending, we've talked about hacking, we've talked about DIY, we've talked about being a builder. Can you talk a little bit about what some of those terms, maybe starting off? I think, Etta, you mentioned hacking, and Veerle, you mentioned circuit bending. For people that don't know what those things are, can you explain what that means for people?
Yeah, I think for me, hacking basically means using something for a purpose that it wasn't originally intended to be used for.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
And is the Game Boy performance an example of that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that was actually more, I mean, circuit bending also is hacking, and then Veerle, you'll say a bit more about what circuit bending really technically is, but like the Game Boy performance is definitely a version, like is an example of hacking, but also hacking can be just using any object. So let's say you have a circle saw and you take the blade out from the saw and you use that to hit on as a symbol. That's also kind of hacking, because it's just using it in a different form than what it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm just really inspired by that, and I think it's cool to take things that are, weird and use them for something else.
Yeah, and take it out of context.
Yeah.
And I think that with circuit bending, it's nice that it's also about like these electronics, a lot of the consumer electronics and toys and toy keyboards, they have this one purpose that they do very well. Then that circuit is still an open, like an open book. You can just grab a piece of wire and connect different parts of the circuit board together. And maybe something starts to squeal or to beep and to break. So it's kind of like trying to find these little treasures of sound in a circuit, an electronic circuit that weren't intended, and then see how can I performatively use those.
Okay, interesting. So, yeah, that's fascinating, especially from the hardware side, because I'm just sort of trying, because I have a background in coding as well, and I'm just sort of trying to compare that to code. And if you have the source code, you could do exactly the same thing. But with commercial software, you don't have the source code. So it literally is that kind of black box, and you can kind of put stuff in, turn some knobs on your screen and get stuff out, but you can't actually manipulate the wires and actually connect things in different ways. That's very interesting.
Yeah, and it's also really starting to become harder to do these things because electronics are becoming smaller and smaller. So it's really a problem that not only for repair, but also for circuit bending or hacking, that some of these electronics, it's becoming so hard as a consumer or as an artist to manipulate something. And sometimes you even have things that you open and they will have lasered out the type of the chip. So what chip is inside. They've just covered it up with a blob, or they've lasered it out. So it's also about patents.
Patents and like fast electronics, fast fashion, everything that just goes back into, we want it to break. We want people to buy new things. Things should be like thrown away because you will have to buy the newest thing and spend more money and go back into the thing. And it's just a lot of things that you buy now, also you can't even open them. They make it hard to even try to see what is wrong inside.
Yeah, so I think kind of where we step in there as also music makers is like, how can we still try to hack these things, but also teach others how they can do that themselves. Education is really important, even not just for the fun electronic side and to make noise boxes and to make like screamy toys, but also to stop people from throwing stuff away.
Right. Yeah. So okay. I have a million different thoughts running through my head, but maybe it's really hard to talk to you two because you have so many interesting things to say. Okay, so I'm just going to pick one interesting thing to talk about. So, so at the end there, you just mentioned about so that sort of connects back to sort of your musical performances. And that's one of the things I'm curious about as well, because Etta, you talked a little bit about your own sort of artistic background and the way you approach making art. Veerle, you also, I've seen you perform and play live techno sets and acid sets and experimental and other kind of things. So you both have your own individual artistic projects, but then you also perform together as parallel problems. So I'm curious, how did that come about? How did you actually start playing together? Because it's different than just collaborating on a track. You're actually doing something that seems like more than the sum of the parts when I've seen you play.
Yeah. I think we just talked about like how did we even meet, and it was, I think, through a common friend of ours.
Yeah.
And the first intention was like, oh, you're doing stuff with electronics, I'm doing stuff with electronics, and we both are in the artist and music scene. We should try to get a workshop together. Mm-hmm. But then that workshop never really because we started making things as a test for something like a workshop, but then also found out it's really nice to implement musically. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how we exactly said, let's make music together. I think it just naturally sometimes happens. But what I do find really funny still is that we will build up stuff almost till the day before we have to go live.
Right.
Not rehearse stuff. No. And then play full sets. Yeah.
So it's up till the end. It's like, maybe we can add this thing. Maybe I can solder till 4 at night.
Like, oh yeah, I guess I have nothing to do tomorrow. Let's solder like 1 more hour.
1 more.
I just want to make this one thing work. And then of course the next day we're like, oh, I'm not even going to bring it. I'm not even gonna bring it.
Or it broke. Or it broke.
Or a lot of things break. And then we're like,
what next?
But it was really funny when we first started getting together. We were just sort of like, let's put all of our electronics on the table that we think are kind of fun, and we're gonna look at them and try to do things with them. And then we just got so excited by all the different things and overwhelmed that we just were like, okay,
after 3 hours or something, you're like, let's stop.
Let's stop. We gotta just make some weird sounds together and.
But we always have one rule, and it has to stay fun.
Yeah, that's the most important.
Yeah, we don't, even if we get asked for like gigs and things, we always like, first place comes fun and comes exploration. And it's not about making the best techno set or about this is gonna be our debut live set or recording. Like the first place is let's have fun and let's make it chill and enjoy the evening, and then see where it goes.
I can totally picture the two of you in that room with all that electronics. But I'm curious a little bit about how, because I'm always fascinated by this with artists, and I perform a lot with hardware as well. And I find sometimes it's the hardware itself that inspires the sound, that playing around with it, and I just discover something, I kind of go with that. Other times it's more that I have an idea, I have a concept in my head already, and it's more about trying to find the pieces that'll actually let what's in my head actually kind of get out through the speakers so the audience can hear it. So I'm curious, when you're approaching a new set, when you were playing at modulation, or you're playing at voltage control, were you kind of starting with a musical concept or an idea, or is it more about starting with, we got all this cool stuff to play with, let's see what happens? Or is it improvised on stage? Like, I'm just really curious how that process, because every artist has completely different approaches and how they work with that kind of idea.
Yeah, I think, you want to go first?
I think like we both have constantly new things that we're excited about. So almost every time that we play, we have a new thing that we're like, a new toy or a new sound that we're like, this is going to be fun and I'm going to bring it. And so that's something. And then we like improvise a lot.
Yeah, a lot of improvisation, but we do the drawing. Like we draw out from one of your workshops, we draw out where do we start off? Do we start slow, then build up, then maybe a break? And a lot of times we have like one particular sound or sample that we really want to put in there. Like the emergency, there was this like sample of like, attention, ladies and gentlemen, this is an emergency. And it's like, this has to be somewhere in there.
Right.
But where, maybe there. But, and I think most of the times it's kind of improvising, but it helps to have the drawing in between us, because you want to know where the other person is, especially if you're improvising and you are sort of experimenting and you don't have really songs or an outline.
Right. And just for people that might not sort of know exactly what you're talking there about a drawing that kind of represents the flow of the set and where the peaks of intensity and that kind of thing are. Okay.
Yeah, and then it helps really like to have a break, and then I point at this drawing, and maybe I'm somewhere up, and then Etta is like, oh, but I was kind of here. So you can communicate throughout the live set. It's mostly about where is your energy, what do we want to go with this energy, and sometimes you can see it in the people. You can see that people want to have a break from it.
Yeah. Or they really want to dance more.
Or they want to dance more. Yeah, you have a long break, and you can see the excitement in their faces, like, okay, come on, drop it.
So that's another question that I've basically, this is one of the questions that I kind of ask everyone that I interview, and I'm particularly interested with you two. So we've talked a lot about the gear, about waste and recycling and trash and all those kind of things. So a lot of those themes and those ideas are running through your work, and in your case, literally, because these things are on stage and you've built them and you've hacked them and so on. And I'm really curious your thoughts on kind of the effect you hope that has on the audience, because there's kind of like two ends of the spectrum, right? Like one end of the spectrum is everything is so obvious and so upfront. It feels like a public service announcement, and you're giving a lecture to the audience, and it just is not really that interesting. And the other end of the spectrum, it's so conceptual, so esoteric, so intellectual that the audience doesn't have any idea what's going on at all. And I think it's always interesting if you bring sustainability themes into music, kind of where you, and it's usually, of course, not either or of those, but from your side, these ideas you talked about around waste and recycling and e-waste and so on, what's your thought about how the audience engages with those ideas? Is it about the music first, or about the ideas of waste and noise and trash first, or both? Are they connected? How do you think about that?
I think first of all, what I can tell, what I notice when we play live is that people are surprised to see these things in a live set. So it surprises them that there is a toy in there,
right?
Or a strange, sort of modular built in an old radio on the table. So first of all, you can see that people are like, huh, can you do that? Is that possible? So that's more about like the gear side, that you can surprise people with what you can bring.
Okay.
But I think what's also for us important is like we also have examples of female players who make music and that made us make music. And I really feel if we're playing live, like a lot of times after a set, people come to us, and also girls or women come to us to talk and think, oh, this is really cool, and this is like inspiring in some sort of way. So you're also, in a weird way, like an example, no, not an example figure,
Just
how do you say that?
like role model in a way.
Yeah,
But
you could be, but you don't want. Yeah, you don't feel like.
You don't feel like exactly. I mean, I wouldn't want to be a role model.
If only they do.
They're going to listen to this podcast now.
But it's really nice. Like, I mean, I think it's just opening the door because it's such a male-dominated industry. And one of the things, and one of the reasons that I make music is kind of reaction to that. And one thing that we find a lot is when we show up to a venue and people see us and they're like, oh, we have very round faces and we're kind of short and we're like, oh, cute girl showing up. And then we start at 200 BPM with like the harshest head that you can imagine. Yeah. And I mean, we've had a lot of people, and it's like this underlying sexism that is not intentional, but it's there of people saying, oh, are you here to film the artist? Are you the camera girl?
Yeah.
Oh, right. No, you're not. Oh, so you're going to do visuals.
Or your boyfriend. What's your boyfriend playing?
Oh, you're here with your boyfriend. Wow, so nice.
Yeah. So I think it's for us also to just break the stigma. So break the sort of perception of, okay, if you're a female musician with synths or something, you have to make these very pretty melodic like it doesn't need to have a certain message. You can just also say, we're here to just make sound, destroy it, enjoy, and see if you come out alive in the after.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just share the fun of it. But I think we don't really think per set, okay, what is the actual concept? The message is already there because we do it. And the message is there because we bring these toys and we don't need to over-exaggerate that, I feel.
No, and I think also, a lot of it is just we want to have fun and we enjoy doing this.
Yeah.
So it is,
it brings joy to the people. And then, and we have also sometimes people contacting us later. It's like, okay, how do I get into this? How can I make this myself? So it's almost sort of a way of educating through a live set.
Yeah.
Or opening a way that people can get educated on DIY and circuit bending and hacking, and they have an opening now, and they know, okay, now I have to go there to find it.
So it almost kind of circles back to that community part that you were talking about earlier. Okay, sure. Interesting. Also, sorry, go ahead.
I think also, like, I don't have a background in how to make music at all. I have no idea, and I really like that, and I think that's also very freeing. And a lot of people are like, well, I had no idea I could make music without having a musical education, and I find that really nice to just explain and then show people you can actually just make whatever you want if you want to do it with whatever materials.
I find that fascinating. Just giving people different entry points, different insights. Last month, Paula here in Berlin, she gave a workshop more on the software side, but using VCV rack and open source, and thinking about, if you can, you don't need to spend 25,000 euros on this modular rack. You can do this for free, or you can pay whatever, like $50 or something for the paid version or something like that. And still, it's not about how good your gear. And I actually learned this the hard way, because when I was a kid, I was really into playing electric guitar. And back then I was into Jimi Hendrix and Led Zeppelin and Cream and AC/DC, all that kind of thing. I remember I finally convinced my parents to buy me like a cheap electric guitar Stratocaster copy, and I got it and I plugged it in, and my first strum, it's like, I don't sound like Jimmy Page. You can have exactly the same gear, but it's not the gear that actually makes good music. It's the artist that's using the gear that can. I remember saw like a little video of, I think it was a documentary of Jack White, and he basically had a flat piece of wood and he hammered in a nail at one end, a nail at the other end, and screwed in a pickup, and then ran a piece of wire across it, and then basically played a amazing guitar solo of just thing that he just like hacked together. So it's, but I think it's yeah, for me as a kid, I was very disappointed to realize that I couldn't just buy my way into being an amazing artist by getting cool gear.
No, and it's also what I found with the workspace a lot. Like, it's nice to have this community eventually because you can also trade stuff. I just talked to a guy yesterday who's like, I make PCBs for Eurorack modules, but I don't necessarily want to sell them. I want to trade them. So then, like, it's listening to what people want and then seeing how can we throw that into an event, or how can we throw that into a get together. And I think the most plus point I've ever had with soldering your own stuff and your own gear, it takes time, and you have to think about it beforehand. Like, am I really willing to spend 8 hours into this thing for it to make that noise? And if you can buy everything, it's faster and it's there, but it stops you from having to stop and think like, oh, do I really want this or do I really need this? So for us, like, a lot of our things that we build for sets are pretty time consuming.
Yeah.
Then we at least know, okay, we spent a lot of time in it, now we're going to use it.
And I'm curious, so I have, okay, I have like 95 more questions, but I'm just going to pick two. So I'm going to save this last one. But one thing I'm curious just about you just said there, so you mentioned around like spending investing that time and then building a piece of gear for a set. How much of your stuff that you build sort of carries over from one set to the next? Like, does everything disappear and it's all completely new, or does some kind of continue from set to set, or is there something that's like always there? I'm curious how that works.
A lot of things change. I think also because we both have pretty intense ADHD, and so we don't ever like to do the same thing twice.
Right.
We get really, really bored. So we like to always bring new things, try new things, and we won't even get excited about playing if we don't have something that we're really excited about kind of playing with.
Right.
So a lot of things changed. Some things have stayed, but even like the TR8 stayed for a bit, but now we're kind of like, done.
Yeah, I think it's also going through musical phases. When we started out, we had a setup and then it grows. But on the other hand, we do like also some sort of consistency, because if it's too random and it's too new and chaotic, then we notice like we didn't have enough time to get our hands on it. So a lot of times something will come in and then another thing will come out, or we reuse something in a different way. TR8 was first our main drum machine, and then it ended up being our bass line thing. Rumble. A rumble machine. But I do think we do have preferences with kind of like you like using the pedals also,
I like using
performative
the pedals.
way, and the modular, but sometimes bigger modular, sometimes smaller modular. And there always has to be one weird thing, like a talking or some sort of out of character item. But it is sort of nice to keep some elements consistent, especially when we made more like danceable music. Then you really notice people have a certain expectation from dance music versus harsh noise.
Yeah.
If it's very harsh noise and noisy, and then you go to doing a set where people want to dance, there's an expectation, and if you ruin it too much, then people get out of it and they get confused, like,
but I like that.
Yeah, it's an interesting balance that, certainly, because I when I play live techno, I love sort of pushing those edges and doing weird experimental stuff, but at the same time, people want to dance. So if there's not some kind of rhythm, then they just kind of get bored and start checking their phones or go get a drink or something. So it's always interesting that balance. But speaking of events and speaking of dance, recently I saw that link for one of the greatest names I've seen of the Intergalactic Cyber Trash Collective, which is just, I want to go to that event not knowing anything else. Even if you guys weren't involved, I would go to that event because of that name. Actually, I saw the first event was over the weekend. Can you tell me more about the Intergalactic Cyber Trash Collective? Like what is that? And I guess how did the party go too?
Yeah, well, I guess, so it started, I work at Daybase, which is where it was held, and the building is getting demolished. So I was asked to be the last art expo with the like, hey, Etta, we know you do crazy shit, you can destroy the building. Sort of like, just go wild and, make some weird shit out of it. And I thought, well, I can't do this alone. So it's a great time to bring together all these people and make this community of like people that I'm already working with, but now it's together in one expo, also with one or maybe two nights that we're also showing our music.
Yeah.
So it's really nice that we're all working together and like piecing together different stuff that we have. And
like Trash Avengers. Because everybody brought their own skill to the place. Like some of us were more in the computing electronics, others a little bit more also in Will works a lot with screens, with media, with more TV kind of stuff. And it was really nice to see like there's no really a clear path, but we all have collected all these things and we make all these sort of cyber trash art. How can we sort of build that under one umbrella some way? And it was really nice to do. And also the opening evening with having the live music, it was more of like a hybrid between a party and an expo, but really like a rave and an expo.
Okay,
so
cool.
It also brought out a lot of people from the scene that are a little bit like hidden and now come out and then experience the artwork and maybe get inspired themselves also to build more stuff.
Yeah.
More trash, more stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and we hope to do it a little bit more often, I guess, also maybe for different festivals or for
different
give us a
venues.
space. We'll bring the trash.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's like I can see that on a sticker right now.
Yeah, they did have to stop us. Eventually, at first we got a free for all, and eventually there was this moment of like, okay, so this is the point. Sort of.
We said
maxing
free
out.
for all, but that doesn't mean that we can change the entire space because it still has to be open as a bar.
Right. Okay.
Like we're gonna do this and that.
Punch
But,
holes.
No, it was super fun, and it was nice. Also, we have a gig coming up on the 12th, and Pelle was there, and he also is somebody that I just was super excited to hear that he was really inspired by it.
Yeah, that's nice.
And he also was really inspired by the Tech Fest, where we also performed and had art, and it's cool to see this is spreading to other cities and other people are getting inspired by this and want to make their own spaces and art collectives like this and music. So
because the one thing we would say is start your own group like this, and see what's around and see what you can use and what you can reuse. And especially having a team makes it easier than on your own.
Yeah.
So, awesome. That sounds great. Well, thank you so much for the chat and sharing all those things. In the show notes, we'll include links to both of your work and Parallel Problems and a bunch of the different artists and spaces that you mentioned. But just before we wrap up, we're actually going to move now into actually sharing some of the sounds. So I think we've actually got a recording of a set that you did at Voltage Control. Do you want to tell people a little bit about what was behind that and what they're going to hear?
I think it was fun to do a set like this because Voltage Control Amsterdam, that is run by Bart Wolf as the organizer, is a really nice event where there's 8 different types of modular artists, and everybody only has 15 minutes. So it's kind of this carousel, very fast, like you get a little taste of something and then before you start getting used to it, it's gone. And for us, it was really interesting to see that we bring a lot of kicks. And I told Bart a bunch of times, like, we're going hard this time. Like, this is not the same as the modulation set for Nijverheid. We're all in. And then he places on the first of the evening, the opening act.
And we're like, are you sure? And he was like, yeah.
You gotta do noisy stuff.
You're gonna just do little noisy stuff.
Whooshy. And then we did the sound check and just everybody looked at us like, no.
Oh no. We're not gonna change it because this is what it is now. And we told you don't put us first.
But it was kind of nice to do that opening because people started to come in and there was 1 or 2 guys. There was one man that came after our set to us and it's like, I've never heard this before, and he really shook me out of my pants, So it was kind of fun to see. Also, people were very much from the traditional modular Eurorec sort of. I don't want to say the old days, but more. I don't know, just more certain sounds that are very common. And how to bring something new and fresh that did surprise a lot of people. And we had a lot of fun doing it. We were very hungover because we also played the evening before.
At a street rave in Groningen.
Yeah.
And then that was like super hard as well and a bit late. And so then we came the next day, all of our stuff, like, okay, here we are.
Minutes
We
of
can do
destruction.
it.
And then start with a bang.
Yeah.
All
Then
right.
like we don't have to go half hour or later. We can just do 15-minute sets. And
Right.
then
But yeah, long explanation. You can edit that as much as you want.
All right, cool. Awesome. Well, yeah, thanks for that. So let's take a listen to that set. And thanks again so much for chatting. I really enjoyed that.
Thank
Thanks
you
for
so much.
asking. Yay.
Yeah, thanks.
parce qu'on a beaucoup de travail pour préparer la station finale et l'expérience. Voilà. Et retour donc samedi 28. Merci de votre contact, à bientôt. Ok Jean-Pierre, merci beaucoup et à bientôt. Plaisir de te recontacter le dimanche. Au revoir.
All right, thanks for listening. Had a great time talking with Veerle and Etta about trash and waste and music. Be sure to check out the show notes for links and more info about their work and some of the people that they talked about. And talk to you next time.